Today we're going to look at two models for the digestive system. Keep in mind that there are two major functions for the digestive system. The first function is digestion, which involves the breakdown physically and also using enzymes of the food materials. And the second function is absorption of the nutrients released from the food we eat. Also keep in mind that the digestive system is divided into two divisions. The GI tract, which starts in the mouth and ends in the anus, and the accessory organ, which involves the glands and organs like the liver and the pancreas. So we're going to start with the GI tract, and we'll start in the mouth, and we will look at the mouth in the torso. And in the mouth there are teeth. So this particular model kind of shows some of the teeth. The teeth are important for mechanical digestion. So we use the teeth to physically break up the food into smaller pieces. In the mouth, we also have the tongue, and the torso in here shows the tongue. And if we look carefully at the tongue, there are papillae, and associated with the papillae are the taste buds. So we use the tongue for evaluating the food we eat in terms of does it taste good or not. And also we use the tongue to mix the food and push it down the GI tract. There are three important glands associated with the mouth, and these glands we refer to as the salivary glands. And one of those glands is a large gland shown here on the torso. That's the parotid glands. And there are two other glands. One of them is below the tongue, which is this one here. That's called the sublingual glands. And the third one is below the mandible, which is known as the submandibular gland. The salivary glands, they release one enzyme at least involved in digestion of food, known as the salivary amylase. And the salivary amylase is used to break down the carbohydrate, specifically starch, into a disaccharide known as the maltose. So there is a partial digestion of the starch in the mouth using the salivary amylase. The food products in the mouth is known as the bolus, and it will travel down from the mouth down the pharynx. So we're going to use this other model in here, and the food will travel down the pharynx. Then from the pharynx it will go down the esophagus. This particular model shows that the esophagus is a tubular structure that extends through the chest, and it will pass through the diaphragm and connects to the stomach. This is the stomach, and on this particular model we can see that there are two sphincters associated with the stomach. The sphincter near the esophagus and the stomach is one, and the other one is at the end of the stomach near the or at the end of the pylorus region, and that is the pyloric sphincter. The stomach is divided into 4 regions. The area near the esophagus, or the connection with the esophagus, is known as the cardiac region. Then the elevated portion here, which looks like a dome, is known as the fundus. And then the majority of the stomach is known as the body of the stomach. And then the terminal end of the stomach is known as the pylorus. In this model in here, we see the inside of the stomach, which is made up of epithelial tissue, simple columnar epithelial tissue. But you notice in the model it shows that the lining of the stomach is folded into these areas that are known as rugae. The food after digestion in the stomach is released into the small intestine, and the first part of the small intestine in here is known as the duodenum. The duodenum receives 2 kinds of products. One, it comes from the gallbladder, which is the bile. So the bile will be released from the gallbladder and it will travel down through the bile duct. And in this model, you can see kind of greenish duct in here. That's the bile duct. That will open into the duodenum. The bile contains a variety of substances and some pigments. And one of the important products found in the bile are the bile salts, which are used for emulsification of fat or lipid materials. The other connection is to the pancreatic duct. So this is the pancreas here, and the white area in here is the pancreatic duct. The pancreatic duct will bring product from the acinar cells of the pancreas, and there are 2 kinds of products. We have bicarbonate in the pancreatic juice. The bicarbonate will neutralize the acid from the stomach and protect the lining of the duodenum. The other product in the pancreatic juice are enzymes. So there is a pancreatic amylase that will digest carbohydrates. There is an enzyme known as the lipase that will digest lipids. There are enzymes, there's a group of them. 2 of them is known as trypsin and chymotrypsin that will digest proteins. There is also enzyme known as RNase that will digest the RNA in the food. There is also another enzyme known as DNase that will digest the DNA in the food. So there is a large group of enzymes coming from the pancreas that will help in the digestion of the food that we eat. Now the small intestine, the duodenum, will lead to the jejunum. So the first part of the small intestine after the duodenum is the jejunum, and then the terminal part of the small intestine is the ileum. In this model in here shows that the connection between the ileum and the large intestine, there is a valve. That valve is known as the ileocecal valve. So the first part in here of the large intestine is the cecum. At the end of the cecum is the appendix. So this tubular extension in here, that's the appendix. From the cecum we have the colon, and this part of the colon that's going up, this is known as the ascending colon. Then the part that goes across, that's the transfer colon. Then the part that comes down, that is the descending colon. And then the terminal part of the colon here, which curves, is known as the sigmoid colon. Looking at the small intestine and the large intestine, we notice that they look different. And one of the differences we notice is these structures that run along the colon. These strips are known as tinea coli, and these strips represents the longitudinal muscle layer of the muscularis in the wall of the large intestine. We also notice that the large intestine is divided into these pouches, which are known as hustra. If we follow the sigmoid colon, it will lead to the last part of the large intestine, known as the rectum. And the rectum in here is leading to the anal canal. And when we take a look at the anal canal, we notice two sphincter. This is the internal anal sphincter, and then on the outside in here is the external anal sphincters. They control the opening of the anus during defecation, and the internal anal sphincter is controlled by a reflex, the defecation reflex, through the spinal cord. And the external anal sphincter is controlled by conscious control the message comes from the brain. So this is the GI tract and the accessory organs of the digestive system.